Hello and welcome to Outpost Virtual Series. Today we'll be live streaming a Skillshare led by Jake Pereira. My name is Robert and I would like to thank all of you for tuning in. Outpost will be launching different virtual events each week to help our community stay active, engaged, and connected during these times. I encourage you all to follow our Outpost Facebook page. That way you can get reminders of different events that are rolling out each week. Next week's schedule will be coming out shortly. Tonight's Skillshare topic will be calm, clarity, and creation during uncertain times, led by our host, Jake Pereira. Jake is an executive and personal development coach. His work is focused on helping people tap into their unrealized potential. I'll drop a link to his information in the comment section so you guys can stay connected. Also, feel free to say hello and what part of the world you guys are tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you guys have any questions throughout the Skillshare, put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to interject throughout the Skillshare to make sure that all of your questions get answered. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Jake to jump in and kick things off. Everyone enjoy the Skillshare.
Thanks, Robert, and really excited to get going. Appreciate you guys reaching out. I'm a huge fan of what you guys are doing with the Outpost community and excited to offer a little bit what I've learned along the way to keep your community calm and clear on what they want from this time period and keep creating. So I appreciate you having me.
Hey, we're happy to have you. Welcome.
Great, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And then Robert, if you could just confirm that you're able to see that.
Yep, everything clear.
Great. So yeah, as Robert mentioned, the title of this presentation, what I wanted to cover with everybody today is 3 C's for uncertain times. And the origin of this is in the work that I do, I have the opportunity to work with people all over the world to, as Robert mentioned, start to tap into unrealized potential in order to create something extraordinary in whoever I'm working with's life. And when this crisis happened, when seemingly overnight we were thrust into this world that was completely different than the world before, you know, lifestyles were interrupted, everything was suddenly different. I felt compelled to pull together the best of what I've learned and just something really simple. And something really simple that I could share out with people that would be easy to remember, hence the 3 C's. And it would not only be easy to remember, but easy to implement. And so that way, when, you know, the challenging times do show up, that way when people are feeling discouraged or feeling like they're not sure how they're going to proceed, they can come back to these. So that's what the 3 C's are really all about. And today during this presentation, ask questions, interrupt me. I want to make sure that this works for you. Definitely don't want to just do, you know, talk, ask questions at the end. So if things come up for you during the presentation, if you have scenario specific questions, feel free to drop a comment and we'll definitely address them. So the 3 C's, what are they? You know, cultivating calm, finding clarity, and creating. And during our time today, I'm going to give you different strategies to cultivate calm in your life. And so calm really is the opposite of anxiety and uneasiness. Calm is approaching your world with a sense of presence and groundedness. And we're going to approach it from a calm mind, a calm body, and we're going to talk about different habits and routines that you can implement in your life to contribute to it all. We're going to talk about clarity because knowing where you want to go and knowing what you want is the first step to getting what you want. We're going to talk about the power of clear intentions and clear goals, the power of reflection and looking at your life and what's going on, and then the power of clarity around relationships as well, because the people in your network and your community can be one of your most powerful assets during this time. So we're going to spend some time on that as well. And then finally, creation. So how do you keep going and how do you keep growing during this time? How do you keep making sure you bring the best of yourself to the world? Because right now, more than ever, the world needs that. So how do you keep creating? How do you set your environment up for success? How do you make sure you're disciplined enough to keep the promises that you've made to yourself? And how do you make sure that you approach all of this with a sense of resourcefulness so that when inevitably, when those challenges do come up, you're able to figure out a way around them? So those are the topics we're going to cover today. And then, as I said, if things come up during the presentation, just ask and we'll address them as they come. So part one of this presentation, how do you cultivate calm? How do you cultivate a sense of presence and groundedness in your life when the world around us is in crisis? How do you approach your life? How do you approach your family? How do you approach your business ventures? How do you approach everything with a sense of presence and groundedness and calm so that you can think rationally, so that you can plan and you can keep executing? Cultivating calm is a skill, and it's something that can be developed, and it's a superpower. You know, not only during times like these, but when the world is going through anything challenging, when your team is going through anything challenging, when you are going through anything challenging, the ability to approach that situation with a sense of calm can make all the difference in the world. But how do you do it? How do you cultivate a sense of calm? How do you go from anxiety and uneasiness and a feeling that the world around me is no longer the way that I once knew it? How do you go from that place to a sense of calm? Because I understand it's not an easy thing to do, especially in the moment. In the moment when you're feeling anxious and uneasy, getting calm seems like the most impossible thing in the world. But if you start to use your mind in a certain way, it becomes much, much easier. So when you think about the mind, there's three things that we'll talk about that will radically shift how you're feeling moment to moment, but then also allow you to start training the mind so that you can call on the sense of calm whenever you need it. So those three areas are focus, energy, and meaning. And I'll break that down a little bit. So human beings have the unique gift and sometimes the curse of being able to consciously or subconsciously choose what they're focusing on. So moment by moment, day by day, we're always choosing what we focus on. Are we focusing on the news? Are we focusing on what's good in our life? Are we focusing on what's bad in our life? Are we focusing on what we can control? Are we focusing on what we can't? You see, the ability to direct your focus and direct it consciously is incredibly powerful. And especially during these times, if we don't choose consciously where to dedicate our focus, if we don't take control and make the decision that we're going to direct our focus with skill, then our focus is going to be directed for us. Because in the 24-hour news cycle, when we've got social media, when there's so much uncertainty, it's easy to have our focus taken away from us. It's easy to have our focus directed to news articles that are designed to invoke a fight or flight response. It's easy to focus on what's not working instead of what is. It's easy to focus on what could happen in the future rather than what's actually happening in the moment right now. Now, this doesn't mean you put your head in the sand and ignore everything that's going on. It just means that you take control and you realize and have the awareness that your focus is yours. Your focus is yours to direct. Your focus is yours to own. And with this realization, you can realize that if you're feeling a sense of anxiety and uneasiness, and you ask yourself, okay, what am I focusing on in this moment right now? Am I focusing on something that serves me, or am I focusing on something that's not? And if you're focusing on something that's not, that awareness is that first step to claiming the power to redirect your focus. An easy way to shift this is gratitude. You hear it all the time. But gratitude's not just important during the good times, but it's really important during times like these. Focusing on something that you're thankful for or you're grateful for is a really easy way to shift your attention. But again, I know during times like these or challenging times in life when you're anxious or uneasy, it can be really challenging to think about what you're grateful for. So a tip here is if you can't think about something that you're grateful for, think about something you don't want to lose. Think about something you'd be really sad or disappointed in if you lost. And chances are if you feel that way, if you don't want to lose something, then you're probably grateful for it. So shift your focus to that. The second component of this is energy. And energy is a second order consequence of focus. So when you're focusing on something, you then have the choice, am I going to devote energy to it? Am I going to give my energy? Am I going to give my life force to this? So if you're focusing on something, let's just say a news headline, for example. If you're focusing on a news headline, you could read it and take it in for information as a non-biased, non-interested observer, or you could give your full energy and attention to it. Depending on which one you choose, your calm, your sense of calm or lack thereof will be very much influenced. Your energy can go out to people. Are you giving your energy to your relationships, to your family, to your business, to your projects, to the people that care about you? Or are you giving your energy to something else? Are you giving your energy to something that serves you? Or are you giving energy to something that doesn't? Because that's another fantastic part of being a human being. If you claim the power, is you can direct your energy with skill. You can direct your energy how you want to. You can direct your energy towards the things that matter to you. And when you're directing your energy this way, and you're thinking consciously and intentionally about where your energy is going, then that will contribute to the sense of calm. Because anxiety and uneasiness is this feeling that we've lost control. So when we consciously direct our focus and we consciously direct our energy, then we start to regain the sense of control. Then we're focusing on something that we can actually control rather than something that we really have no control over, the external world. And the third pillar here is meaning. So meaning is something that we attach moment by moment to circumstances and events in our lives. Meaning is such a personal thing. It's the reason why an event can happen or something that can happen in the world, and one person gives one meaning to it, and then another person gives a completely different meaning. Even the time we're in right now, the pandemic, some people are giving it the meaning of fear, and I need to stop, and I just don't know what's going to happen, and I can't go on, and that's one meaning. And another meaning is this is a time for rest. This is a time for refocus. This is a time for me to ask myself, what do I really want? Neither of them are necessarily right or wrong, but the question that I would ask is the meaning that you're giving it working for you? That's the litmus test. Is this meaning working? Is it serving me? Am I giving myself an empowering meaning that serves me and contributes to my sense of calm and well-being? Or am I giving this a meaning that's taking away from that? And the choice becomes yours. Because when you seize the power to all three of these, calm just starts to overtake you. You start to realize that by focusing on something that's in your control, that internal game, the mind, and taking focus away from the external world that we really have no control over, calm just starts to flow. So in review, focus, choosing consciously where you're directing your focus, energy, what energy are you giving to that focus? Is it serving you or is it not? And meaning. Are you giving things in your world an empowering meaning, or are you giving them a meaning that doesn't serve you? And now again, I want to respect and call out that I know that this can be challenging work, but it is work. And on the other side of that work is something beautiful, your sense of calm. So I want to check in with the group and just ask if we have any questions. I will keep presenting, but as questions come, feel free to drop a comment. So the second pillar that I think about when thinking about calm and what contributes to calm and how you can cultivate that sense of calm. We talked about the mind and the mind's role. And the second pillar is the body. How you're using your body or not using your body can have a dramatic impact on how you're feeling. If you're not getting movement, if you're not putting the right fuel in your body, if you're not taking time to recover, then that sense of calm can be pulled away. So again, making this simple, if you think about the body, if you think about three things: how can I get movement in? How can I put the right fuel in my body? And how can I recover? So let's talk a little bit about movement. So movement it doesn't have to be getting into the gym, because I know for some people that's not a reality. For most of us, that's not a reality right now. It doesn't have to be going on a 20-mile run. It can be something as simple as getting up and going for a walk. Bonus points if you get out in nature. It can be doing a home workout. I know there's somebody streaming on this platform yesterday that did a tremendous workout. Fitness professionals, it's amazing what they're coming out with right now so that you can get that type of movement in your home. And so not having the equipment is no longer a barrier. But getting movement is so important, because when we get that movement going, the blood starts flowing, there's chemical reactions going on in the brain that have been scientifically studied and proven over and over and over again to improve the way we feel. But right now, during the quarantine and the social isolation, it's really easy to live a life that's a bit sedentary. Stick at home, sit on the couch, not move throughout the day. So if you can figure out a way to get movement, if you can commit to a way to get movement, you'll start to feel better and better. And it's so important that you plan and get that intentionally set into your day. Find something that works for you. If you have an activity that you like, don't force yourself to do an exercise or a workout program that you don't get any joy from. This would be an enjoyable process for you. So find movement that works for you. Find movement that you enjoy, because it really will start to contribute to that sense of calm. Second is the fuel piece. And by fuel, I mean food and drink. What are you putting in your body? Are you putting food and beverages into your body that contributes to a sense of healthiness and well-being and calm? Or are you putting something in your body that's contributing to anxiety? Because if you're an anxiety-prone person, and with all the pressure going on in the external world, and then adding to that with a fuel that contributes to anxiety, it just keeps stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking. So during this time, it's extra important to think about what you're putting in your body. So it's avoiding anxiety-inducing foods like caffeine and alcohol and sugar. Yeah, I know that can be challenging, but if you really want to claim that sense of calm, you have to think about it. Because when we overconsume sugar, overconsume alcohol, overconsume processed foods, our body reacts accordingly. And so when we think about these pillars of cultivating calm, if you're doing the things right with your mind, if you're getting your movement in, if you're thinking about your body appropriately, but then you're putting crap fuel in there, it negates a lot of that work. So you can honor yourself and contribute to your overall sense of calm by putting that quality fuel in. Next is recovery. And recovery can mean everything from sleep to rest, meditation. Again, it's a personal thing, but the importance here is that you are getting it in. Are you sleeping correctly? Right now, since we're not going into offices, we're not going out into the world, there's this weird blend happening where, it's easy to stay up late watching Netflix, or it's easy to stay up late working. And then before we know it, we look at the clock and it's 1 a.m. and we've got to get up the next day for an 8 a.m. meeting. And this just stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks. And so when the body's not being taken care of, the mind suffers as well. It starts to lose that sense of calm. So when you think about this recovery pillar, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing to contribute to rest? What am I doing to contribute to sleep? What are my habits around this? Are they serving that, or are they detracting from it? And that will build into that pillar of calm. So when you think about that body, when you think about your body, again, in review, it's movement. It's how do you get movement throughout your day or at a set time during your day to get the blood flowing and let the body do its thing to contribute to the calm, to get out some of that pent up energy and uncertainty. It's how do you put the right fuel in your body? How do you put things in your body that serve you? And how do you recover? How do you make sure that you get the right sleep? How do you make sure you get the right rest so that you have the energy and vitality to keep going and going and going? So building off a little bit of what we just talked about with the body and recovery, something that can be really, really powerful to help with all of this, it's kind of the overarching structure with it, is habits and routines. So habits and routines are the things that you do day in and day out. And it's this weird paradox where if you have structure in your life, it actually creates freedom. If you have dedicated set out time as your gift to you, it creates freedom, it creates well-being, and it creates calm. So one of the ways that you can add this right away is the idea of the morning routine. And the morning routine has been popularized because you hear about these top performers, these professional athletes, these executives, and they all talk about their morning routines. But sometimes it can be a little intimidating because you read about their morning routines and, they wrote a book, took a company public, and ran a marathon all before 4 a.m. It's like, man, I don't want to do that. I'm having a hard time just getting up out of bed in the morning. So the great news is you don't have to take it to the extreme. Keeping this simple, in the spirit of keeping it simple, it's just about getting a few things in the morning. If you can get that movement piece in the morning, if you can get some sort of meditation or breath work in the morning, and if you can get some sort of intention setting or goal setting and goal review in the morning, then that's a fantastic morning routine. A morning routine might look like going for a 10-minute walk, doing 5 minutes of guided meditation on Calm or Headspace, or one of the other free platforms that are offering meditation and guided meditation right now. It could be journaling and writing down the 3 things that you'd like to get done for the day, or the 3 ways that you would like to show up for the day. And having that movement, that meditation, and that intentionality is a fantastic way to start your day. And it'll give you a sense of calm because you've taken ownership of the day. Morning's not even finished and you've already won your day. So this is where the morning routine is really powerful. You can implement different routines throughout the day. You can have your morning routine, and if you're an overachiever, you can get in an afternoon routine where you take a little bit of time to reflect and think about your morning and what you'd like to focus on for the rest of the afternoon and into the evening. And then if you're a super overachiever, you can even add an evening routine. Maybe it involves, getting some reading in, doing some journaling, getting the lights lower, start to calm the mind and get ready for rest, whatever it is for you. But if you can start to implement these routines throughout your day that are set every day, that you're going to be consistent on, that you're excited to do, that are manageable. Again, you don't have to run a marathon before 4 a.m. Just make it something that you enjoy and something that's manageable and something that you look forward to. Because when there's a lot of uncertainty going on in the external world, the routines, the morning routine, the afternoon routine, the evening routine, whatever it is for you, can help create consistency and certainty in your own life. So the next pillar here is to unplug. And this is more of a habit, but it could be a routine for you. It's really easy right now in this connected world. We're more connected than ever digitally, to constantly be plugged in, to constantly be plugged into your work, to constantly be plugged into the news, to constantly be plugged into social media. It's really easy to never take a break. And this just hypes us up and hypes us up and hypes us up to where having a sense of calm is nearly impossible. So having set time that is your time, that you can't be interrupted by any notifications, you can't be interrupted by any emails, by any phone calls, by any texts, by any news headlines, by any alerts on your phone or computer. If you have that time set aside as your gift to you to really unplug, then throughout your day, or that one time a day, you're really going to start to feel that sense of calm, because that is your time. That's your time to focus on whatever is important to you. So I encourage you, as you develop your morning routine, as you develop these different parts of your day, think about, how do you want to unplug intentionally? The final pillar here that I would encourage you to implement as part of your habits and routines is connecting with others. We may have to social distance right now, but that doesn't mean you necessarily have to isolate yourself. Having set points to check in with your team, to check in with your friends, to check in with your family can be really powerful in invoking that sense of calm. Just the other night, I had the opportunity to FaceTime a group of family members that I hadn't talked to in a long time. I thought, man, this is incredible. I got such a sense of relief and calm just from spending that virtual time with family. So now I'm thinking about ways to implement that regularly. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's every other week, maybe it's every day. Whatever it is for you, you have to look at these through the lens of, what will I do? What will I be excited about? How will this work for me? So in review, habits and routines. These are the things that we do day to day, day in and day out, each and every day, to start to create some certainty and focus and control in our own life. So morning routine, if you want to implement some sort of movement, some sort of meditation or breath work, and then some sort of intentionality, keep it simple, make it manageable. With unplugging, have that as a part of one of your routines, or make it something completely separate, where you unplug from the world and you think about what it is that you need. It's not about notifications, it's not about news, it's just about your time. Taking the time to cultivate that sense of calm. And then finally, connecting with others. How can you intentionally set up time, intentionally set up habits, and intentionally set up routines to where you're connecting with other people? It'll give you a great sense of joy to connect with others, and I know others will appreciate you connecting with them as well. So part 2, getting clear. The second C, this is clarity. And clarity is really important because knowing what you want is really the first step to getting what you want. And if you think about this, if you were going on a journey and you were going to sail across the Pacific Ocean, for example, and you were the captain of your ship, but you had no idea what your ultimate destination was, and you're sailing whichever way the wind took you. It will probably take you a lot longer. You might eventually get to your destination, but it's going to take you a lot longer, and it's going to be a lot more of a struggle. But if you can have a clear destination set forth for yourself, a clear point of what it is that you want to create, what you really want in your life, and you can sail towards that, making small adjustments along the way anytime you get off course, the journey is going to be easier, you're going to get there quicker, and you're going to enjoy the process a lot more along the way. So when you're thinking about clarity, you can think about this from the view of a question, because what questions do when we ask ourselves questions is it puts ourselves into a place of resourcefulness. It's not, there's a problem, I'm powerless in it. It's a question. And it allows your mind to think about that question and approach it from a sense of resourcefulness. So when you think about clarity, it can start as simply as, what do I really want? What do I really want out of my life? What do I really want out of my relationships? What do I want out of my business? And going back to the point of meaning, right now, an empowering meaning to attach to this time where everything's slowed down is, what a great time to ask myself, what do I really want? What do I really want to focus on? What's my intention for this time? How do I want to show up? What are my goals? What are the things that are most important to me? What are the mission critical tasks that I can focus on each day? Where am I pushing my attention? And is that aligned with what I really want? You know, on the screen here, you see 1, 7, 30, 60, 90. So 1 being the day. What do I want for the day? 7 being the week. What do I want for the week? What do I want for the month? What do I want for the next 2 months? What do I want for the next 3 months? And if you enjoy the process, you can keep going with it. But if you can ask yourself, what do I really want? And start to line up those goals and intentions with what you really want, then you'll have something to work with. You know, I think right now with a lot of the uncertainty, it's hard to think about what you really want. Because if there is so much uncertainty in times like this, that question falls down the line. But it's actually more important than ever to think about this. So I would encourage you to ask that question, you know, what do I really want? How do I set clear goals and intentions? How do I set goals and intentions that are excited and feel aligned? How do I focus on my mission critical tasks? What are those mission critical tasks? What do I want for the day? What do I want for the week? What do I want for the month? What do I want for beyond that? What do I want for my life? Because again, if you don't decide what you really want, the world's going to decide it for you. So it's a critical question to think about. So after you've decided on what it is that you want for this time, after you've gotten clear on what your intention is, what your goals are, or what your goals are for this time, you know, after you've really decided what your destination is, what you're going to chart towards, you know, there's a really empowering thing, and that's that you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to set out on this solo journey. It's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's encouraged to ask for help. It's encouraged to lean on your community during this time. It's encouraged to ask for help from your community. And it's encouraged to give the best of yourself to your community. Because I think oftentimes, you know, with this social distancing and with the unprecedented uncertainty, it's really easy to feel alone. It's really easy to sink into isolation rather than thinking about your community and who you can ask for help. So again, thinking about this from the frame of a question, who are your people? Who are the people in your network? Who are the people that can help you? If you think about what it is that you're truly after, that point of clarity, who are the people that can assist? And so the way I like to think about this is a concept called the hierarchy of relationships. And this is thinking about the different types of people in your life who can contribute and help, and then also who you can help as well. So in the center of this hierarchy of relationships is your cabinet, your personal board of directors. These are your mentors, your coaches, your advisors. These are people that have been down the path that you're on before, that have gotten to that point that you're seeking out to, your personal clarity, and they've taken the journey. They know the unexpected twists and turns. And when you think about those people, think about the rules that you have for them. How do they need to show up in your life? What do they need to provide? What experience do they need to have had? But then also think about how you want to show up. What do you want to give to the relationship? What are your rules for how you need to show up? Maybe it's presence. Maybe it's complete attention. Maybe it's honesty about the current situation. Whatever it is, it's deeply personal. But if you think about your personal board of directors and you think about those people that you can seek advice from, then you'll have powerful insight and input into the journey ahead. And you'll have this realization that you don't have to do it alone. The second click out from this circle is this idea of peers. So people that are on a similar path, people that are creating something similar in their lives, people that are on a similar journey. Maybe these are coworkers or people in your business or people in similar industries or people with similar focuses in life. But reaching out to them and saying, hey, what are you seeing on this journey? What are you seeing on this path? What are the things that you're seeing that are working? And then offering up the things that are working for you. These are people that are your peers. These are the mastermind type groups. This is harnessing the power of the collective, harnessing the power of the people that are on a similar path. And again, think about how you want to show up. How do you need them to show up for you? One click out is your friends. These are the people that you have fun with. These are the people that you recreate with. These are the people that you call for the virtual happy hours or a good laugh. Because inserting that joy and being intentional about the joy is important too. But also having the realization that maybe your friends aren't the ones that you go to for business advice. Maybe your friends aren't on that similar path. Maybe they're not peers, or maybe they're not your trusted advisors or board of directors. Because friends are always well-intentioned, but they may not always be the best people to talk about when we need, or talk to when we need advice and perspective. Again, it's a highly personal decision, but asking yourself that question of, am I engaging in the right group? This is where this fits into clarity. Thinking about your network with intention, thinking about your network with clarity, thinking about who are these people, which group am I going to engage? Is it my personal board of directors? Is it my strategic advisors? Is it my peers? Is it my friends? Which area is it? And the neat thing is you can have different boards of directors for different categories in your life. You could have one board of directors for your relationships. You could have one board of directors for your health, one board of directors for your business. It's a personal decision, but having clarity around who is in your network, who can you call on for help, who are the people that can assist and who can you assist, creates tremendous power and clarity in your life. And knowing that you have this community around you, knowing that you have this group to support that you've designed intentionally, can contribute to that sense of calm. Definitely contributes to the sense of clarity. And it'll get to the point of creation that we'll talk about here in a little bit. So the next point here is the power of reflection. And the power of reflection as it fits into the point of clarity. Clarity being knowing what you want so that you can move towards what you want. But reflection is a piece that you can add to that will take that level up, because it'll allow you to be a student of your environment. It'll allow you to be a student of yourself. It'll allow you to be a student of what's going on in your external world and a student of what's going on in your internal world. So the power of reflection. And reflection is something that you can implement as part of your habits and routines. Reflection can be something you do right before you go to bed at night. It can be something you do in the morning when you wake up. It's a personal decision, but it needs to be there, because if it's not, we miss out on so much good. We miss out on so much clarity as a result. So with reflection, how do you do it in such a way that's manageable? Well, I think about this in terms of 3 questions. Again, keeping it in 3s because that's how our mind typically works, and keeping it simple. And so reflection is as simple as what went well, what could I do different, and what will I do different? It's looking at a situation and looking at what went well. It's celebrating what went well, giving yourself the credit, allowing yourself to feel that joy, because celebration is such a key component in fulfillment. And so thinking about what went well, celebrating it, dissecting, being a student of that experience, noting key learnings, noting things you did, noting things about how you showed up, noting things about the environment, who was there, who was participating, how were you showing up? What did it feel like? What went well? And then the next one is the opportunity for improvement. What could you do differently? What didn't go as well as you hoped? Not beating yourself up, but being a student of it. What could you do differently next time to improve just a little bit? Just a little bit. Maybe it's a feeling. Maybe it's the way you showed up. Maybe it's how you worked. Maybe it was the strategy. Maybe it was the people. Maybe, you weren't as conscious and clear about your personal board of directors and somebody gave you advice that wasn't quite what you needed. So what could you do different? Knowing what you could do differently empowers you to ask the question of what will I do differently? So could and will are two different things, right? So as you reflect on what you could do differently next time, and you start to identify those things, pick a few that you will do differently next time. Pick a few that you will absolutely commit to. Pick a few that if you make just the smallest adjustment, it will make a disproportionate impact on the rest of your life. So reflection, it's such a powerful tool. Asking yourself what went well, what could I do different, and what will I do different? And again, you can implement this as part of your habits and routines. You can ask yourself this throughout the day. I personally ask myself this many times throughout the day, especially towards the end of the day as I reflect on the day at hand and then think about the next day. But as you start to add reflection, you'll be a student of your experience and you'll realize that all that you need is within you. You just have to tap into it. So asking yourself these questions are a great way to start.
Jake, just a quick question coming in. Can you give us
absolutely.
examples of ways that you can celebrate those wins? Because I do think it is something that oftentimes people don't take the moment to realize an accomplishment and just move on to the next task. What are some ways you can set a reminder for yourself to pause and celebrate whatever it is you accomplished, whether it's small or large? How are some ways that you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a great call out, and such a great call out that sometimes it's so easy to not take that pause and not celebrate the wins and not give ourselves that credit. And, it's critically important, right? Because we spend so much more time in the journey than the actual destination. And if we're always pushing out that next thing, like I'll be happy when, I'll just celebrate when, or this was small, it really doesn't matter that much, I'm not going to celebrate. Or, one thing I see a lot and hear a lot with the kind of like type A achiever personalities is if I celebrate, I'm going to lose my edge. If I celebrate and if I give myself credit, I'm going to lose my edge and I'm not going to have the passion and the fuel to move forward. But the actual result that's on the other side of not doing that is a lack of fulfillment. So it's so important to give yourself that time to honor yourself and give yourself that chance to celebrate big or small. So ways that you can do that, this is where getting clear and being a student of your own experience and a student of how you operate is super powerful. Because if you can start to reflect on the things that bring you joy, big and small, and start to reflect on the things that light you up when you do them, the things that really make you feel good when you do them, then you can start to use those as celebration points. And so right now, it doesn't have to be a big thing. You don't have to go on a trip around the world to celebrate every accomplishment. It could be simply sitting in a quiet space and thinking, wow, I'm really proud of myself. I'm really happy that I honored that promise and I followed through. I'm really happy, and just allowing yourself to go there. If you have an activity that you like that's possible right now, it could be using that as your way to celebrate. It could be calling somebody that is really interested in your success and is rooting you on and sharing that celebration with them, and finding a person that just gets absolutely stoked when anything goes right. I know that's one of the most powerful ways in my own life that I celebrate. I have this network of really phenomenal people that support me. And anytime something goes on good, high five and celebrating together. Right now it's the virtual high fives, but just celebrating those wins with the team is really powerful too. So that's where that intentionality around community could be powerful right now, is setting the intention that I'm going to create a community in my life that I'm going to check in with regularly, and I'm going to share the highs, I'm going to share the lows, I'm going to celebrate the goods, and I'm going to get feedback on things that I could be doing a little bit differently. But absolutely love that question, because it is so important to stop and celebrate. And right now, I think it's easy to slip into, well, I can't go to my favorite restaurant, I can't go to the favorite bar, I can't take that trip, so I can't celebrate. You absolutely can. You just have to be a little bit more resourceful with it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah. Awesome. So part 3, creating. creation, how do you keep going and how do you keep growing in your life? Because growing is so important. Growth is so important. Creation is so important. You know, whether you're an entrepreneur, creator, leader, whatever it is, creation is that key to progress. Growth and creation is the key to life. You have to keep creating and giving the best of yourself to the world, especially right now. The world needs it more than ever. And if you're not giving the best of yourself to the world, if you're not creating, if you're not finding new ways to create during this time, it's not only going to take away from your sense of calm and well-being and personal fulfillment, but the world's going to miss out. You know, I really believe, and I'm driven by this fact, it's why I do this work, that every single person has a way of showing up, has a way of being that adds value to the world that the world critically needs. Whatever it is, it's highly personal. Everybody has something different, but the world needs it. So creation is critically important for the individual, but it's also critically important for the collective because the world needs you right now. So after you've developed this sense of calm, after you've gotten clear on what it is that you want to use this time for, what it is that you want to create, how do you create it? How do you make sure you follow through and honor the promises for yourself? So this has changed a little bit. So now that we're not going into the office, now that most of us are working from home, what are the things that you can do to contribute to creation? You know, the first check that I think about with creation is one that sometimes gets left to the side, and it's more important now than ever. And that's, is my physical environment, is the space that I'm operating in set up for my success? Is the space that I'm operating in contributing to my creation? Is it aligned with the clear intention that I've set out for myself? Or is it a distraction? Is it a place that I enjoy going? Have I made it personal to me? Have I made it my space, my physical environment that I'm excited to go in or go to and work at? Or is it distracted? Is your space cluttered or is it organized? Is your space set up to where you can sit down for periods of time and do deep, meaningful, focused work? Is it set up to create? Are there the right people in the environment? Have you set clear boundaries with your relationship? You know, if you're quarantining with somebody else, have you had the time to have a dialogue about what it looks like to respect personal workspace? You know, not in any other way than coming from, hey, I just need this space to keep doing this so I can keep growing and so that I can be fulfilled and bring the best of myself to this relationship into the world. So is my environment set up for me to succeed? You know, now's a fantastic time to do the spring cleaning and go through your environment. My lady and I went through and we threw away probably 15 bags worth of clutter, or donated 15 bags worth of clutter in our house, and there was a sense of calm that ensued afterwards, because your physical space is constantly sending cues to your brain about what needs to happen in that environment. So setting up that environment intentionally is critically important. And again, start out with a question. Look at your environment and ask yourself, is my environment set up for me to succeed? Because if you're not able to be in the beautiful places like, you know, the outpost co-working, co-living spaces, it may not be as intentionally designed as that. But what can you do to start intentionally designing that in your own life? It's really, really important. So the next step, or check for creation, if you will, is discipline. And I mentioned it a few times in this presentation, but the way I think about discipline is pretty simple. And again, I love framing things as questions because it taps into a resourcefulness in our own minds, in our own brains. It puts us in a resourceful state to solve problems. So the question that I ask with discipline is, am I keeping my promises to myself? You know, when you got calm and then you got clear on what it is that you really want, when you thought about your 1-day plan, your 7-day plan, your 30-day plan, and you started to set out those tasks, those daily activities, those weekly activities that you know are important to what it is that you want to create, to how you want to show up in the world, and you made those promises to yourself and you thought about why they were so important to you, day to day, do you have the discipline to keep those promises to yourself? And this isn't a matter of beating yourself up. It's just a matter of checking in with yourself. This discipline is a moment by moment thing, but it can also be a key component of reflection. If you can ask yourself, am I keeping my promises to myself? And if the answer is yes, fantastic. Take that time to celebrate like we just talked about. If the answer is no, don't beat yourself up, but reflect on it. When you're thinking about discipline, you're thinking about your daily activities, ask those reflection questions. What went well? What could I do differently? What will I do differently about specific habits? Maybe the reason that you're not following through, and maybe the reason that that discipline isn't showing up is because that point we just talked about environment isn't set up correctly. Maybe you don't have the right people showing up in your life, or maybe you're just not honoring yourself, and maybe you're just not following through with the promises that you made to yourself. Maybe you're not giving yourself that gift. But think about it, because day-to-day actions over time is what creates massive progress in our life. Sometimes it may seem like we're not moving, but when we look back on it 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, you'll be amazed at how far you've gone by having that daily discipline and practice. So celebrate this, reflect on this, be intentional about this. How are you going to be disciplined in your life? And the last pillar that I think about with
I quickly
creation.
Before we move on,
Question.
jump back to the environment portion, because I think this anytime is more than ever is more important, especially when our environment is necessarily our home that we're stuck at. So how do you create that environment that you can still be productive, that you can still get work done, that you can still get the relaxation that you need, and keep to those routines that you were talking about? Because now it's more difficult to confine to where you live.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so true. It is more difficult than ever right now, and it's also more important than ever right now. So it's this weird, there's this tension between it. And so, a lot of it depends on your space, right? If you have a room that you can dedicate to work, an entire room, that's fantastic. If you can set that up as an office, or you have a desk where the only thing you do when you sit at that desk is work. That's not your time to go on social media. That's not your time to check the news. When you sit at that desk, it's work. Maybe it's well lit. Maybe you've got posters on the wall that, inspire you and uplift you. When I think about the poster thing, this can be more powerful than you might think. There was a study done where they put patients, medical patients, in a room, and they were monitoring their progress and recovery. And one section of the patients they put in a room with no windows, just blank walls, no natural light coming in, and the recovery process was pretty slow. Then they adjusted it and they just put posters of nature. Not actual windows, just posters of nature, things to remind people and invoke that, sense of calm that comes around nature. And the recovery process was expedited rapidly. I mean, the data was unbelievable. And so even something as simple as like putting that poster of Bali back up, if you're not there anymore, if you had to go home, putting that up is important. So setting up your room for success. Now, I realize for some, you don't have a room. Maybe you're in a studio, and maybe you're living with another person, and you've got one environment to cook, to clean, to live with other people, and getting work done in that environment is even more challenging. But even if you can give yourself a small dedicated space, even if it's just a corner of the room, even if it's a place at the kitchen table that when you work, you're going to clear it out, you're going to get the distractions away, you're going to set the boundaries with whoever you're living with, you're going to put your headphones in, you're going to listen to music that inspires you and creates productivity. So whatever it is for you, the most important thing, and you can actually apply these principles to it, right? If you can get that sense of calm, if you can get into a state of resourcefulness, and you can get clear and start to ask yourself, okay, what are the things that I need for my environment in order to be successful? Because everybody's different. Maybe it's a really quiet space for some. Maybe it's actually a space with a little bit of noise and a little bit of background going on. Maybe that works well. Maybe it's a full room. Maybe it's a section. So whatever it is for you, decide, get clear on it, and then start to set it up and commit to it and honor that daily discipline of knowing, like, okay, when I'm working, this is how my environment's set up. When I'm not working, that's okay. But when I'm working, this is how it goes. Because again, our physical environment's constantly sending signals to our brain that we're maybe not even aware of. And so as you make this adjustment and you haven't been working from home and you're at home and you're doing it in the environment that was typically set up before, your brain's going to go, wait a minute, this isn't time to work. This is time to relax. This is time to lounge. So if you can really break that pattern and set up a new pattern can be really powerful.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, no worries. So the next piece of this, and we talked about a little bit just there with the physical environment, is resourcefulness. And this is, how do I operate from a place of resourcefulness rather than lack? You know, one of my favorite quotes is, there's never a lack of resources, there's only a lack of resourcefulness. And during times like these, that's really challenging because roadblocks come from all directions. You know, people are being laid off overnight, environments are changing, people can't go out to certain areas. So this idea of resourcefulness becomes, again, more challenging than ever, but also more important than ever. So resourcefulness is that commitment to moving forward, that commitment to creating, regardless of what's going on in your external environment. It's such an empowering way to operate in life. And again, when I think about these, keeping on that theme of framing these in questions, you know, you can think about this from a moment by moment. You can also think about this with your 1-day goal, your 7-day goals, your month-long goals, your intentions. You can think about this with what you're trying to create. But the first step here is thinking about your environment. It's, what do I have and what do I need to find? What exists in my current environment? Who are the people? What's the space that exists? What are the skills that I have? What am I uniquely positioned to bring to the world right now that maybe I hadn't tapped into in a while? Identifying capabilities and skills, identifying what's going on in your environment, identifying communities like these. You know, the events that Outpost is putting out right now. It's a tremendous asset for you, a tremendous resource to be tapping into. So tapping into things like that. And there are more communities or more different support groups that are popping up now in times of need than ever before. So it's tapping into those. And that falls into that component of, what do I need to find? If you know you have the skills, if you know you have the capabilities, if you know you have certain components of your environment, but then you identify a gap, that's okay. That's where resourcefulness comes in. That's where you can start to ask yourself, what do I need to find? What do I need to go out and get? It's taking 100% personal responsibility that you're going to own your life and you're going to chart that destination, and you're not going to let anything stand in your way. So as you're trying things, and if you keep coming up against roadblocks, sometimes it's easy to just say, I don't know, I give up, that's it, I'm not moving forward. But I would encourage you to ask that question of, what haven't I tried? What am I not thinking of here? What haven't I done? What's something that I can do just a little bit differently that might be that thing that unlocks the rest for me? And this can be challenging sometimes to do on our own. So this is where you can tap into that network of strategic advisors, your personal board of directors, where you can ask peers, run scenarios by friends, whatever it is for you. But having that person in your life that can help take the cognitive blind spots out can be really helpful. And then you'll start to build that muscle. You know, it's amazing sometimes how just one comment from another person can completely unlock a way of doing things.
Jake, we've talked a lot about building the network and that community to lean on for support. Maybe you can share some tips on finding that network. How do you seek out a mentor? How do you seek out the right community that fits your goals that you're setting for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic question. And so going back to that point of clarity, this is why clarity is so important, because, you know, knowing what you want, again, is that first step in getting what you want. So if you give yourself that gift of getting clear on what it is that you're really after, who are the types of people that you need in your life to make it happen? You know, what are the relationships you need? Then it becomes exponentially easier to go out and find those people. Because if you don't know what you're after, if you don't know what you're after, one, it's going to be really hard to find. But in a quality mentor-mentee relationship, the best ones that I've seen and experienced in my own life, it's when you can go to that mentor with a really clear laid out path and say, okay, this is what I'm trying to do in my life. I've seen that you've done it. I would love help, right? If you go to a mentor and they say, okay, what do you need help with? And you go, well, I don't know. It's not going to be as productive as a conversation. Now, there is a way to approach that as well. You know, if you're clear on your path, but you're not clear on how to take that first step forward, that's a much different conversation. If you go to a mentor and you say, okay, here's where I eventually want to get, but I don't know the next step forward. That's why I'm coming to you. That's a different conversation. So that's okay. But when you think about finding these people, it's identifying. We'll start with the mentors, and then we'll go into the community. But if you think about finding these people and you think about mentors, you ask yourself the question of where would these people be spending their time? And not just physical spaces, but virtual spaces now. What are the groups that they might exist in? There's so many fantastic groups and communities that you can plug into. I'm part of a bunch of different groups in the coaching space, and I found some great mentors that way. These virtual masterminds, which ones can you plug into? What are the virtual environments as we've kind of shifted out of this physical space that you can start to plug into? Where are these people hanging out? Where are they spending the time? Adding value whenever you can, in these groups. If you see questions come up, answering questions with your own perspective. But then the final component of this, and one of the most important ones, is just having the courage to ask. I think sometimes when we think about successful people, it's so easy to build the separation between us and think, well, I don't have any need to talk to them, or they wouldn't have any interest in helping me. But you will be amazed at how willing people are to help, especially right now. There's this huge outpouring of support from people that have, created a lot of success in their life, and they're more than willing to help the next generation, come up. So ask. And if the first person says no, this is where the resourcefulness comes in. What haven't I tried? Who am I not thinking of? Who else can I ask? And so when you think about that relationship, once you do get to that point where you have the commitment from a mentor, it's important to think about, all right, how do I want to show up? How do I need them to show up? Because that's how the relationship continues to grow. And it's a similar strategy with community, right? If you think about where are the peers, where are the people that are on that similar path to me hanging out, again, Outpost is a phenomenal example of this. You guys have built a tremendous community. So, maybe it's re-engaging with this community. Maybe it's looking at other communities to supplement that. But these communities are out there, and more than ever, they're existing virtually. So it's easier and easier to plug in. You just have to have the courage to ask.
Awesome feedback. Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, no worries. So that brings us to the end of what I had prepared. In summary, how you cultivate that sense of calm, how do you get clear, and how do you keep creating? And these are the pillars that I've distilled down that I found that have been really helpful with coaching clients in my own life, etc. But wanted to open up some time for any additional questions, but also wanted to share my contact information. So that's my email and that's my cell phone number. I would love to have a conversation with you if you have any further questions about any of these pillars, if you're working to create something in your life and you're not quite sure how to approach it. I'm offering up a 1 hour long session for free to anybody right now. It's my way of trying to give back during this time. And I've been having some phenomenal conversations with people. I'm really inspired by how resourceful people are during this time, but did want to offer this up to the Outpost community because I'm a huge fan of what you guys are working on.
Awesome, Jake. Thank you for sharing that and extending this this extension for your time and energy, and also hosting this event. It's been very helpful. We do have a few questions. So, what would you say is your one daily routine that you find most crucial to setting up your day for success? Like, what is the one thing that you tackle in your day that if you miss it, your day may be a little misaligned?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think about the pillars of movement, meditation, and intention, and those three, the one that has the most powerful impact on me is physical activity. If I can get some movement in, because I tend to be a little bit more in my head. And so if I can get, into the body and get some physical activity, and it just creates an immense sense of calm for me. So that physical activity is really important for me. Now with this, we can't go to the gym anymore where I'm at. All the gyms are closed. So it's actually been an awesome opportunity to kind of re-tap into nature physical activity. I've been getting out on the bike and getting out on the paddleboard and starting to connect that way. So usually first thing that I do, right now we started this presentation at a little before 4 a.m. so I didn't quite get it in, but usually I start my day first thing with some sort of physical activity. And then with that, with like a very close second, meditation and breath work has been super powerful for me. I had a chance to go study meditation with the monks in a monastery in Thailand, and just the approach that they have to living, the way they use breathing and the way they use focus as an approach to life was truly inspiring to me. And it's had just such a tremendous impact going forward. So, that's a discipline and a practice that I also try to keep very regular.
Very cool. Thank you. The question we have is, how do you view the current isolation time, changing people's routines in general, but also their willingness to connect in person? Once the storm passes, how do you see this going back to normal, or will it, for people's willingness to connect in person-to-person environments?
Yeah, I think it will come back. How and when it comes back, it'll be interesting to see, right? But I do truly believe that there's such this innate desire for human connection. I mean, I love the virtual stuff, but for me, it's just not the same as connecting with somebody person to person. And I'm missing that in my own life too. And I'm asking that question of when will it come back? But I'm also appreciating the contrast, because I think sometimes I took relationships and connecting. In fact, I know I did, connecting with people person to person, face to face, feeling the energy for granted. And now what I felt like to not have had that for nearly a month now, when it does come back, man, I'm going to be extra appreciative and extra grateful, and have that perspective of, wow, like this isn't a certain thing. This thing that we thought was always going to be there a month ago, it can be taken away. So, I think how and when will be interesting. And I think thinking about too, that there's a lot of uncertainty and apprehension about what's going on with the virus itself. There's not a lot of clarity about, how contagious is it? How serious is it? For what groups is it most serious for? So I think as more information starts to come out too, that will help ease people's minds as we go back into that person-to-person contact. But I am going to be so grateful when we do. I'm looking forward to it.
I think that's a shared sentiment worldwide.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we are running up on time, but I do have one last question.
Yeah.
It's also pertaining to our current situation and how to build lasting routines, because in these times, everyone's schedules are a little bit more flexible. They're really allowed to structure their day and make their own schedule. But when we go back to our routines with the 9-to-5s and maybe the meetings and the hectic schedules, how do you keep those routines intact that you can create in this time that we have, more flexibility, but how do you make those last?
Yeah, what a great question. I mean, seriously, can't see you asked that, but that's a stellar question, because that's such a beautiful way to look at this time. Like, what a fantastic meaning to associate to this time, as this is a time where I'm going to develop lasting routines and habits that serve me for the rest of my life. And that's such a beautiful example of a person making meaning of a situation. So stellar question. So how do you develop lasting habits and routines? I would actually approach this in a similar way now that I would at any time. So the first is, why are you doing it? Like, thinking about the reason, like, why is it that this habit and routine is so important to you? Like, what will this mean to you personally? What will this mean to your family? What will this mean to your relationships? What will this mean to your business? Like, allowing yourself to go to that place of, wow, this will make such a tremendous impact on my life. I have to do this. This is a must for me. And anytime you're not feeling motivated to continue with the routine, tapping into that. Maybe you write it down somewhere. Maybe you make record. Maybe you film a video of yourself during this time saying, this is why I'm committing to these habits and these routines. And so the next portion of the question is, the environment today is possibly different than the environment tomorrow, when you go back to those 9-to-5s. So I would think about this more in terms of pillars than the granularity of exactly how it's done. So this is why I'm a huge fan of thinking about it in the terms, like for the morning routine, for example, in terms of movement, meditation, intention. Because I know that there's sometimes when I'm traveling that I'm not going to be able to get into my gym, or I'm going, and meditation for 30 minutes in the morning maybe isn't as realistic. Maybe I don't have my journal, but there's so many different ways. Like, I could adjust it to going for a walk. I could adjust that to just a single breath meditation a few times throughout the day. Or I could adjust my intentionality rather from my journal to just thinking about when I wake up, when I put my feet on the ground first thing in the morning, of what do I want to focus on today? So if you think about it in terms of pillars, anything in your routine, physical space is another example of this. If you want to implement the habit of having a clean and organized physical workspace, that can apply whether you're at home or in the office, etc. So if you think about it in terms of like, why do I want to create this, and what's the essence, or what am I looking to get out of this routine, it can be helpful as you're resourceful and flexible as our environment does inevitably change, because that's the one thing that is constant.
Totally agree. Well, thank you very much, Jake, for streaming all the way from Reno, Nevada. I know it's on 5 a.m. So thank you for making the time to share this with our community. It's been very valuable. Everyone tuning in, I hope you found value in this. I know I did. So everyone, give it up for Jake. Thank you so much. We look forward to
thank you all. I appreciate it.
Keeping in touch with you, and again, we'll link your personal information in the comments section as well. Don't be shy to reach out. Jake is a wealth of knowledge, so I think he'd be very happy and willing to accept you guys' connections. So
I really mean that. Thank you. All right, please reach out. I would love to have a conversation with you. I mean, this work is something I'm extremely passionate about, and it works best when I have somebody on the other side to chat with. So I'd love to have a conversation with you. So reach out.
Amazing. Will do. And thank you all for tuning in for this evening's Skillshare. Make sure again to follow our Outpost page. We'll be posting next week's event schedule soon. So everyone have a good night or a good day wherever you're tuning in from. And we'll see you next time. Stay healthy. Thanks. Take care, Jake.
Thank you.